right, people, the Zach Wilson era is finally over. Or is it? Let's discuss. Okay, everybody, Michael Cohen here with you, Sports Talk Nation, and a lot to discuss here this tonight as the Jets are moving on, at least theoretically speaking anyway, you would have to imagine, from Zach Wilson as they finally bench him after another lackluster effort, this one against the Buffalo Bills, as the Jet offense again continues to struggle. And while it isn't all on the quarterback, let's just be honest, there is a lot of blame to go around when it comes to the Jets, to all their problems. And we'll get into all that in just a moment. Whether it be the offensive line, receivers, coaching, we're going to touch on it all in just a moment. But at the end of the day, it's a quarterback-driven league. And when you don't have a quarterback who can push the ball downfield, who can be a difference maker, who can lift teams that have issues as far as talent is concerned, can't lift them, put them on his back, that is a problem. And that was the case here with Zach Wilson, as really the best quarterback play the Jets have seen, really over the last month by someone throwing the football, was probably Thomas Morstead, the punter, throwing an 18-yard completion on 4th down on a fake punt. That was the best pass the Jets have had in a month. That's what it's been like, because this team has struggled to find the end zone. 12 straight quarters going into the second quarter last night before they scored a touchdown. Think about 12 straight quarters without a touchdown. 12! This team has completely hit the halt button as far as scoring points is concerned. And outside of the Denver game where they went off late in the fourth quarter, helped out a lot by that defense, the Jets have not scored 30 points in a game this year outside of that Denver game. Not once! So a change had to be made. It had to be made. And as far as I'm concerned, it should have been made weeks ago. And there's so many things that I have questions about. There's so many things that I've been talking about off air with other friends and fans of the New York Jets. Even the people we've brought on here onto the channel, Dan Feuerstein, Rick Laughlin, all these people we brought on, asking the same questions. Why? Why did this take so long? And that's really the biggest question for me, is because last year, the Jets had no issues benching Zach Wilson at all. In fact, they had done it multiple times. They did it, obviously, towards around Halloween, around that time last year, when they brought in Mike White, came in for that Bears game, lit it up. This, of course, after that Zach Wilson disaster in New England last year. And that was really the beginning of the end of Zach Wilson, really, for the rest of the season. The only reason he came back in to play in games was because Mike White got hurt. And then when Wilson was struggling against the Jaguars, they benched him again, this time for Chris Streveler, of all people. So here we are again. And the Jets did everything they could to really move on from Wilson, as we all know. They went through the entire offseason. Would it be Derek Carr? Would it be Aaron Rodgers? Carr, Rodgers. Eventually the Jets settled for Aaron Rodgers, of course, and Rodgers all in, wanting to come into New York. And you're thinking, well, we're not going to see Zach Wilson play again. That was the plan, that he would not play again for a couple of years. The Jets told us, and they sold all of us, the idea that Wilson would learn behind Rodgers, that it would be a tutoring process in that way to try to reclaim reestablish himself career-wise as a backup and Rodgers as the mentor. That hasn't worked out, as we all know, with Rodgers out for the season up to this point, despite the rumors that he may come back in December. Out for the season with the Achilles tendon tear, forcing Wilson to play in these games and play this season, and he still looks like the same quarterback we saw just a year ago. In fact, even over the last 2 years, making a lot of the same mistakes, holding on to the football too long, making the wrong reads. overthrowing guys, underthrowing guys. A lot of times his own teammates have not helped him at all. There have been a lot of times this year. I would love to know what the stat is for drop passes in the NFL. I really would, because I bet you the New York Jets lead the league in drop passes. There are times where Wilson, and let's just be honest here, there are times where Wilson has hit guys in the numbers and they drop the football. Whether it be Garrett Wilson, whether it be C.J. Uzomah, even Breece Hall, I don't care who it is. We have seen guys drop passes that should have been caught consistently throughout the course of this season. I would love to know what that number is. And yesterday, the Jets didn't even convert a third down. 0 for 11 on third downs. They are, as I saw a stat yesterday by Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic, the Jets are on a historic pace, converting only 22.9% of their third downs, the worst ever. And you're telling me the change shouldn't have been made. So yes, there is plenty of blame to go around. I could get on the offensive line too, which has been a patchwork mess throughout the course of this season. Guys coming in and out of the lineup getting hurt all the time. Mekhi Becton now the latest to get hurt with an ankle injury. Thankfully, it's only an ankle, considering the issues he's had with his knees over the last couple of years. There's so many ways we can go with this. There really is. But that's the question I ask is this. And I go back to what I just said a little while ago. Why wait so long? Why? What was holding the Jets back? Because, as I said, they were so willing to move on from Wilson a year ago when they brought in Mike White, when they brought in Chris Streveler, and then eventually benching Wilson again for the last couple of weeks of the year for Mike White to play out the rest of the season. Why, when you make that move for Aaron Rodgers and he gets hurt, and you see over the course of the season that maybe Zach Wilson just doesn't have it as your starting quarterback, even in the Giants game that they won 4 or 5 weeks ago. Why wasn't a move considered then? It felt like the Jets were protecting Zach Wilson, protecting him from any kind of criticism. We didn't see the players in the locker room kind of throwing him under the bus the way we did in many ways last year. It felt like let's protect Zach, his psyche, as much as possible. And I just wonder where was this all coming from? Was it coming from Joe Douglas? Was it coming from Moody Johnson? Was there a little bit of the Aaron Rodgers influence of saying, hey, look, I'm all here for Zach. I'm all in for him. Let's stick with him and see what happens. I just wonder where it's coming from. I really do. Because over the last, month plus now, there was no reason why the Jets shouldn't have at least benched him in a game. Not saying to bench him for, several weeks, just to sit him in a game, get him out of there. The game against the Raiders in Las Vegas, you can't tell me there wasn't an opportunity there to bench him in that game. Even last night against the Buffalo Bills, you bring in Tim Boyle when the game is all over at 29-6. Now you make that move? Come on, Robert Saleh, what are you doing? So there's a lot of questions that I have that go beyond just the play of the quarterback, questions I have about what has been going on with the coaching staff, the coaching of this offense, the coaching of this quarterback, and the way he's kind of been coddled in a lot of ways. He really has been. I'm sorry, it's the truth. That's what it's felt like this year. And it's become now a year that's a lost opportunity. 4-6, the Jets are finished as far as I'm concerned. They couldn't afford to lose these 3 games that they just had come by, especially the game in Vegas and the game last night against the Buffalo Bills. Couldn't afford to lose them. And I said after that Chargers game, I said the next 3 games, they have to come out of it 2-1 if they want to give themselves a shot. And they're now 0-2 and staring possibly most likely at 0-3. I don't know what Tim Boyle is. Tim Boyle might be, if Tim Boyle lights it up the scoreboard against the Dolphins, that's going to make the Jets look even worse. Think about that for a second. It'll be nice. The Jet fan will get excited because if Tim Boyle comes out there, lights up the scoreboard, and the Jets win, obviously Jet fans are going to think, hey, we got to win. We're going to get closer to getting Aaron. That's going to be the theory. We're going to get closer to getting Aaron Rodgers back towards Week 16. I would be upset because you're thinking to yourself, if this guy's that good, why didn't you put him in earlier in the season? That's going to be my point. And again, I don't know if he's going to do that. I have my doubts that Tim Boyle's going to light up a scoreboard against Miami. I highly doubt it. And if you watched the game last night, there wasn't much to sit there and say that you felt confident that Tim Boyle moving forward. But the fact is the Jets needed a reset. They need a reset at the position. And there are now huge questions about what this franchise is going to do moving forward. And a lot of questions about where's Zach's place in this franchise moving forward. Well, it's pretty obvious to me. It's over. It's over. And he has one more year left in his contract, not including the fifth-year option, in which he's making about $5.5 million. And if the Jets get him off the roster, it's an $11 million cap hit in 2024 from what I saw on BetMGM. Now, I'm sure there's some things that can be done as far as, moving money around and waiting a certain period of time into the offseason, March into April, where you can maybe lessen that cap hit per se. Maybe you can trade him for a conditional 7th-round pick. I'm not sure. But the fact is, Zach Wilson's time in New York has to come to an end. For the betterment of both himself and for the Jet franchise moving forward, it has to come to an end. That's the number one thing right there. Before you have any discussion about whether it be Aaron Rodgers or whoever else is in that draft next year, or whatever free agent quarterbacks are available next year, number one is Zach Wilson's time in New York is over. They have to move. Both sides have to move on. That's number one. Number two is going to be, what are you going to do with Aaron Rodgers and his health? Obviously, to me, having him come back now, this team was 4-6. Most likely, it's going to be 4-7 come Friday night. Their chances of getting into the playoffs are minuscule right now at best. In fact, probably over. Especially with the way you see teams starting to pull away now. Denver's playing well right now, 4-0. They've won 4 in a row. Pittsburgh's played fairly well. Cleveland wins games without. They don't even need Deshaun Watson. They keep finding ways to win games. Houston has been on fire. So it's not looking like the wild card is going to be anything for the Jets, and certainly the AFC East, as far as that opportunity is concerned, is by the boards with Buffalo doing just enough to stay ahead of the Jets, and certainly Miami the same thing. Wasted opportunity. That's what the season felt like, folks. It's been a wasted opportunity. It really was, because it was there. And that's what's got to kill you, because you had this great defense this year, a defense that was putting up big numbers, holding down opponents, holding down teams like Kansas City and Philadelphia. Early in the season, Buffalo in Week 1, holding down these teams. And they couldn't find a way to get this offense rolling with this backup quarterback. And that's now on the coaching, on failing the quarterback, and the quarterback failing the team. But it's also on the general manager, Joe Douglas, because why didn't you go out there and try to get another quarterback in here when you had a chance? You had a great team here, a good team. Why didn't they go out there when people like Carson Wentz were calling them up, or Nick Foles was calling them up, supposedly, if you want to believe that? Why didn't they go after a Josh Dobbs, potentially in a trade, if that was indeed available? Or why didn't they consider, well before he got injured himself, Kirk Cousins and a possible deal with the Vikings? Why didn't these things matriculate at all? And it felt like the Jets were just steadfast in saying, nope, that's it. We're going to stick with Zach Wilson until Aaron Rodgers comes back. And that's, again, leads to my question of why did it take this long? All comes back to that question. Why? Who was pumping the brakes in this? Who was the one pumping the brakes the most? So where does he stand as far as Jet quarterbacks are concerned historically? That debate is out there. Did he fail the Jets? Did the Jets fail him? Certainly when you look at a guy like a Mark Sanchez or even a Chad Pennington to an extent towards the end of his time here, or a Sam Darnold, you can make the case the Jets failed those players. Here, it's a case where both sides failed each other. The Jets failed Zach Wilson in his development, as they probably should have had a veteran here to begin with 2 years ago for him, and they should have sat him 2 years ago and let him learn behind a veteran quarterback at that time. And then you combine that with the fact that they weren't prepared to have a veteran quarterback come in here and play when they were mentally moving on from Zach Wilson to come in and play when and if the potential horror existed that Aaron Rodgers went down with an injury. So that's where they failed him. And, of course, he has failed himself in a lot of ways and failed the team because he just hit a wall. It just isn't working for him here in New York. It isn't working for him here in the NFL right now at this point in his career. Maybe like Geno Smith, maybe one day it will, but it will not happen here in New York. It just isn't working with him at all. It isn't connecting. So we move on. Everyone has to move on now. The Zach Wilson era most likely is over. It goes down in flames. What happens next, as I said before, is the big question, and we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. I don't have a lot of hope with Tim Boyle. Oh, at this point, you're just saying you just want to see what can happen here for the rest of the way with Boyle, maybe Rodgers. Although, as I tried to allude to a moment ago, if you're Aaron Rodgers and you're on a team that right now is potentially going up to 4-7, and by the time week 16 comes around, could be 6-9, maybe 6-9. Let's just say going into a game against the Cleveland Browns on a Thursday night. What's the point of having him come back? Just sit him for the rest of the year and get healthy, fully healthy. If he is indeed true to his word and the Jets are committed and he is committed, to coming back in 2024 and trying to do it all over again at the age of 40, pushing 41. That is what the focus should be. And then trying to figure out what the future is for this position, because after next year, it's anybody's guess. Anybody's guess what the quarterback situation is going to be like for the New York Jets. But it probably won't be, I can tell you right now, by 2025, it won't be Aaron Rodgers. It definitely won't be Zach Wilson. And it certainly won't be Tim Boyle. Who is it going to be under center for this team? And if this coach and GM want to be a part of that, they got to find a way to figure it out if Woody Johnson gives them that opportunity. So, folks, leave your thoughts below. What do you think? How do you feel? We'll talk to you next time.